The command center of the alien fleet was still, the hum of systems, the only sound breaking the tension. The Council had decided. Earth had been declared lost, a failure of evolution. A primitive species clinging to a dying world, too insignificant to concern the Empire's vast reach. A quick strike, a swift end. The reports had all pointed in one direction. Earth was done for. But as the last of the long-range scans were completed, something strange appeared on the radar. A single pulse, faint but undeniable. It wasn't much. A flicker, a glitch in the network that shouldn't have been there. "Sir," the comms officer's voice broke through the commander's thoughts, his eyes wide with disbelief. It can't be right. Earth, they're sending something." The commander stood up, a frown knitting his brow. "What do you mean, sending something?" A cold silence hung over the room as the comms officer hesitated. There's no trace of their ships, no detectable weapon systems. But something's moving. "It's a shadow, too large to be a single ship," the commander's pulse quickened. "Impossible. Earth's forces are insignificant. There's nothing that could—" But he stopped himself. The reports had been clear. Earth was done. He had never considered the possibility that the humans might have a hidden weapon, something they had kept secret, something beyond what the Empire had calculated. The Council had believed the humans too weak to fight back. "Bring it up on screen," the commander ordered, his voice tight with impatience. A large holographic projection flickered into existence above the center table, showing the stars around Earth's location. At first, it appeared to be a trick of light. Then, as the shadows moved, the true shape became clear. A massive, undetected object, its surface dark and jagged, blocking the stars behind it. "What is that?" the commander whispered. "Sir, it's enormous," the radar officer stammered. "We've never seen anything of this size. It's moving slowly, but it's coming toward us. Directly." The commander's chest tightened. For a moment, he couldn't breathe. The scale of the object was beyond comprehension. No human technology should have been capable of creating something like this. And yet, here it was. A shadow that swallowed the light, blocking the very stars themselves. "Do we have weapons on standby?" the commander demanded, his voice suddenly firm. "Everything is ready, sir," the weapons officer replied, though his tone was uncertain. "But if this thing is as big as it seems, we might not have the firepower to take it down." The commander's mind raced. The intelligence reports had all been wrong. Earth wasn't just a dying species. They had been hiding something that could change the course of the entire war. A shadow passed across the command center as the giant object moved closer. The fleet's weapon systems powered up, the sound of energy surging through their ships, reverberating through the walls. But the commander's mind was elsewhere, his thoughts flashing to the moment when they had first underestimated Earth. Now it seemed that everything had changed. "This is impossible," the first officer muttered, his voice almost a whisper. "How did they keep something like this hidden? How—" "Doesn't matter," the commander cut in, his voice hard. "We deal with it now." He turned to the radar officer. "Track its movements. Get us a course. If it tries to attack, we'll fire first." The officer hesitated, staring at his screen. "It's not responding to our communications, sir. It's just there." "What do you mean, just there?" the commander pressed, his irritation rising. "It's clearly moving toward us. We need to know what it's capable of." The officer swallowed hard. "It's not like anything I've seen. It's not a ship. It's a structure. A ship would have propulsion, energy signatures, weapon signatures. This has none of that. It's as if it's part of the planet." The commander's thoughts froze. Earth had always been dismissed as a primitive world, a backwater planet that had no place in the galaxy. But now, with this shadow looming over them, it seemed they had been wrong. The humans had been hiding their strength, burying it deep in the shadows, and now it was coming for them. "Sir," the comms officer shouted, "they're sending something again. Another pulse. The commander felt a cold shiver run through him. He glanced up at the projection on the table, watching as the massive shadow slowly edged closer. This was no longer a simple strike. This was an ambush. They thought it was mercy, the commander whispered, his voice laced with disbelief. It wasn't. The shadow grew larger, and the full weight of what was coming hit him. They had been wrong. Earth hadn't been lost, not by a long shot. They had been hiding their true power, and now they were about to face the consequences of that mistake. The commander's grip tightened around the console. Prepare for battle, now! As the ships of the fleet scrambled to power their weapons, the first tremor of fear rippled through the command center. They had been too certain, too arrogant. Now they would pay the price for underestimating Earth. In the distance, the shadow moved closer, and for the first time in the commander's career, he wasn't sure they would win this fight. And that was before Earth even responded. The bridge of the flagship was eerily quiet, the usual hum of the fleet's energy systems now replaced by the ominous silence of anticipation. The enormous shadow looming in the distance, blocking the stars, grew larger with every passing moment, casting a deep pall over the command center. The commander's knuckles whitened around the edge of the console, his mind racing through every possible scenario, none of which ended well. Earth, once dismissed as a vulnerable, obsolete planet, had just unveiled a force they never could have imagined. "Commander?" The radar officer's voice cut through the thick atmosphere. It's closing in fast. The structure, it's not moving like a ship. There's no propulsion, no energy signature. It's just there, a shadow." The commander's eyes flicked to the massive holographic projection on the table, the ghostly form of the object looming larger by the second. "Then what is it?" he asked, his voice low, edged with disbelief. "What the hell is that thing?" The officer swallowed, his fingers trembling over the controls. I don't know. It's unlike anything in our database. It's as if it's part of the planet itself." A sharp intake of breath swept across the bridge as the realization hit. Earth was not just fighting back with hidden technology. They had merged with their environment. They had built something so massive, so deep in the core of their planet, that it was undetectable by any conventional means. "Are we the only ones seeing this?" the commander barked. "Tell me this is some sort of glitch, a false reading, something." But the officer was silent, eyes wide, as the shadow on the screen expanded further, consuming more stars. "Sir," the weapons officer's voice was strained, "all weapons are primed and ready. Should we engage?" The commander's lips pressed into a thin line, his thoughts whirling. The moment they fired, they risked triggering an escalation they might not be able to contain. Earth was already proving it could hold its own, and then some. But waiting for too long would give them an opportunity to retaliate. He had to act. "Hold fire," the commander ordered. "We wait for a clear target. If that thing's as dangerous as I think it is, firing without knowing its full capabilities could be our downfall." The officers exchanged uneasy glances, but none of them questioned the order. The commander turned to the first officer, a seasoned veteran of many battles. "Can you analyze its structural integrity? Find a weak point?" The first officer nodded slowly. "I'll try. But if it's as deeply embedded in Earth's surface as we think, any attempt to hit a weak spot could destabilize the entire planet." "Do it anyway," the commander said sharply. "We have no choice." The first officer typed frantically, trying to decipher the readings. The shadow grew larger, nearly obscuring the stars altogether, as if it were swallowing the very essence of the galaxy. The commander felt the weight of every passing second. They had to make a move soon, but no one was sure what that move should be. As the crew worked feverishly, the quiet on the bridge deepened. It wasn't just the uncertainty of the situation, it was the overwhelming sense that they had underestimated their enemy on a scale they hadn't even considered. The humans had learned, adapted, and now they were showing the galaxy what they were truly capable of. "Sir," The radar officer's voice cut through the tension. "I'm reading something new." The commander's gaze shot to the officer. "What is it?" "It's small," the officer replied, his fingers dancing across the console. "But it's fast, a fleet of ships inbound, too many to count. It's Earth, sending reinforcements." A chill ran down the commander's spine. Reinforcements? He shook his head, struggling to comprehend. How? Earth was supposed to be finished. How could they possibly have... "The shadow," the first officer interjected, her eyes wide with realization. "It's a distraction. They've been hiding their fleet. Those ships are probably embedded in that structure. We've been looking at it all wrong. It's not just a defense, it's a staging ground." The commander's heart raced. The enemy they had been led to believe was scattered and broken was now mobilizing, bringing its full force to bear. Earth had not been sitting idly by while the Empire expanded across the stars. They had been preparing, waiting for the perfect moment. How long before they're in range? The commander demanded. "Less than 10 minutes, the radar officer replied, his voice tight. "They're closing fast." The commander's mind spun, calculations running faster than his ability to process them. They were trapped, outgunned. And yet the massive shadow, this hidden weapon, was the key to it all. He could feel the growing pressure, the pull of the universe shifting around him. The Empire had always been the hunter. Now they were the hunted, and Earth had outsmarted them at every turn. "We can't afford to wait any longer," the commander said, the edge of finality creeping into his tone. "Prepare for full engagement. All ships, lock onto their fleet and engage immediately. We'll take them down before they can fully deploy." The first officer hesitated, looking at the commander with a mix of fear and uncertainty. "But sir, what if we're wrong? What if this shadow is more than just a distraction?" "We don't have time for what-ifs," the commander snapped. "Fire!" The command was relayed, and the fleet's weapons powered up with a roar of energy. Beams of light, pure and deadly, sliced through space, their trajectory aimed directly at Earth's approaching fleet. The moment they fired, the sky seemed to explode with brilliance, the energy blasts streaking across the darkness. The human ships, now fully visible, began to return fire. The commander's grip tightened on the console. Every second stretched longer than the last. The moment they had feared had come. There was no turning back now. The fleet's firepower clashed against the incoming human waves. Explosions filled the space around them, the shock waves reverberating through the ship. It was chaos, unlike anything the commander had ever witnessed. And yet, it was clear. They were not in control. Not anymore. Earth was fighting back. Not with desperation, but with purpose. The commander watched as the shadow loomed larger, its immense form blocking out the stars. For a fleeting moment, he understood what the humans had been trying to convey all along. They thought it was mercy. It wasn't, and that was the moment the commander realized Earth had already responded. The barrage of energy blasts filled the vast emptiness of space, the crackling fire from the alien fleet's weapons surging toward the mass of human ships rapidly closing in. The explosions lit up the cold darkness of the galaxy, sending waves of shock waves rippling through the space around them. The flagship and its surrounding fleet, now fully visible in all their splendor, fought back with unexpected precision. Each human ship moving with tactical brilliance that had never been seen before. The commander stood rigid in front of the viewport, his breath shallow, eyes narrowed as he watched the chaos unfold. The bridge crew scrambled, their voices rising in tension as they tracked the movements of Earth's reinforcements. It was as if the entire universe had been turned upside down. What was once a seemingly desperate, dying species was now showing the galaxy what true power looked like. Shields are failing. The officer in charge of energy distribution called out, "We're taking hits across the fleet. Primary systems are overloaded." The commander's gaze didn't waver. The fleet was already showing signs of breaking under the strain. "What about "Our secondary weapons," he demanded, his voice cold, controlled. "We're deploying the missiles now, sir, but their shields are adapting. We'll need more firepower to make a dent." The commander gritted his teeth. The alien fleet had come prepared for a fast, overwhelming strike, assuming Earth's defense was fragile, nothing more than a quick sweep to clean up a dying species. But Earth had outclassed them. Instead of simply fending off their attacks, they had turned the battle into a deadly dance, striking back with coordination and determination. And the human ships, once underestimated, were proving to be far more than just survivors. "They've learned," the commander muttered under his breath. "Their coordination. They're not just defending themselves anymore." The first officer turned sharply, her face flushed with a mix of fear and respect. "Sir, the massive structure, the shadow, we've detected incoming pulses from it. It's transmitting something." "Something?" the commander repeated, his mind racing to keep up. "What is it transmitting?" The first officer glanced at the console. "It's—" She stopped herself, her voice trembling. "It's a signal, sir, but not like anything we've encountered before." The commander's pulse quickened. The shadow, that enormous structure hidden in plain sight, had been the source of their earlier confusion. It was no mere weapon. It was a beacon, Earth's secret weapon, and now it was alive. Something was about to happen. "We're not the only ones fighting," the commander said grimly. "This is bigger than us. They've been hiding this weapon for years. I can feel it." Suddenly the ship rocked violently. The entire bridge shook as a fresh wave of energy slammed into their shields. Officers were thrown from their stations, and alarms screamed across the ship. "We've lost full power," the chief engineer screamed, barely holding onto his station as sparks flew from the exposed wiring. "Status on the flagship," the commander barked, struggling to keep his balance. The radar officer's fingers were a blur as they tried to stabilize the readings. "It's moving again, sir. The flagship—" He paused, swallowing hard. It's opening fire." "On us?" The commander's voice was ice. "No, sir. On the structure." The commander's confusion was evident. "What? Why? Would they fire on their own weapon?" "It looks like they're targeting it," the radar officer explained. "It's almost as if they're trying to stop it." For a brief, terrifying moment, the commander's mind struggled to comprehend what he was hearing. Earth, a species they had written off as primitive, was fighting not just for survival, but against something far more dangerous than the Empire had ever anticipated. The shadow, the beacon, the weapon that had been hidden beneath the surface of their planet was now their greatest threat. "It's a trap," the first officer said, the horror dawning on her face. "They don't want us to destroy it. They've been using us." Before the commander could respond, the ship shook again, the loud crack of impact sending a shudder through every officer's body. The shadow began to pulse, glowing brighter, with every beat of energy it absorbed from their attack. "We've failed," the commander muttered under his breath, staring at the screen as their forces poured fire into the shadow. The blasts had no effect, dissipating into the air as though absorbed by the very fabric of space. Earth had anticipated this. The warships, the weapons, none of it had been meant for defense. It had all been part of their plan. "Sir, the flagship has begun maneuvering around the structure," the radar officer called out. But before he could finish his sentence, the energy pulse from the shadow shot out with a blinding intensity, a beam that seemed to stretch across the entire galaxy. It was unlike any weapon the commander had ever seen. No ships, no missiles. Just pure, unbridled energy that tore through space like a knife through air. The commander watched in horror as the energy collided with one of their flagship's neighboring ships, disintegrating it in an instant. The entire vessel, once brimming with life, was now nothing but a cloud of particles. It was as if it had never existed. "The fleet, the first officer gasped, eyes wide with disbelief. "The fleet's been wiped out," The commander's breath caught in his throat. The very ships they had relied on, the backbone of their forces, had been destroyed in a single devastating strike. Earth wasn't just fighting for survival. Anymore, they were dismantling the Empire piece by piece, and their fleet was in the center of it all. "Get me a status report on the remaining ships," the commander growled, his voice dark with the weight of their failure. "We've got to regroup," but the words died in his throat as he looked at the viewport again. The shadow, that dark force, had not only decimated their fleet, it had become a symbol of everything they had underestimated. Earth had been silent, Earth had been waiting, and now Earth had fired. The bridge was chaos. The hum of the damaged systems, the flashing red lights, and the eerie silence that followed the devastation created a tension so thick it could be cut with a knife. The commander stood at the helm, his knuckles white as they gripped the console. He couldn't tear his eyes away from the viewport, where the once imposing fleet was now nothing more than a scattering of burning wrecks drifting in space. Their pride had been shattered. The Empire's forces brought low by the very species they had written off as insignificant. "Sir," the first officer's voice broke through the fog of disbelief. "We've lost most of the fleet. Only a handful of ships are still operational. Our flagship, it's damaged beyond repair." The commander's mind raced, but the sheer scale of their defeat left him frozen in place. His gaze moved to the main screen again, where the human fleet, now fully visible and far more numerous than anticipated, began regrouping. The flagship, their flagship, was still fighting, but now Earth's forces were in total control of the battlefield. They had turned the tables in ways no one had foreseen. "Shut down all non-essential systems," the commander ordered, his voice colder now, tempered by the overwhelming weight of their failure. "Send a transmission to the surviving ships. Tell them to fall back." The first officer hesitated. "But, sir, if we fall back now, we're admitting defeat. We can't let them win." The commander met her eyes, his expression one of grim acceptance. "It's already over. Earth has made their move, and we're outmatched. There's no shame in retreating when the enemy has already proven their superiority." The crew worked quickly to relay the orders, but every officer on the bridge knew what had to be done. The Empire's fleet was broken. Earth's victory wasn't just military, it was psychological. They had done what no one had expected. They had wiped out an empire that had thought itself invincible. The weapons officer's voice trembled as he spoke. "Sir, we've got one last shot left, one more missile with full payload. If we target the flagship now, we might be able to take it out." The commander's heart sank. He could feel the desperation in the officer's words, the last flicker of hope for an empire that had been on the verge of conquering the stars. "And what happens if we fire? Do we get to kill a few more humans, only to ensure our own annihilation?" he asked bitterly. "No, we end this now." The first officer stepped forward, her voice firm but laced with sorrow. "You're right. But there's still time. We might be able to negotiate a ceasefire." "Ceasefire?" The commander laughed darkly, turning toward the first officer. "You think they'll give us mercy now, after everything we've done?" The silence that followed was deafening. The weight of history pressed down on them. The Empire had crushed worlds, destroyed civilizations, and taken what it wanted without mercy. Earth, in their eyes, had been a mere obstacle, something to be extinguished before it could rise up. But now Earth had delivered a blow that could not be undone. The commander knew deep down that the humans weren't just defending their world, they were defending their future. "Sir," the radar officer called out, his voice shaking, "we've just received a message from the human fleet." The commander froze. "A message? From Earth?" "Put it through," he ordered, his voice grim. The screen flickered, and a human appeared on the screen. A woman, no older than 30, standing in front of a backdrop of stars. Her expression was calm, even serene. But the eyes, those eyes, filled with unspoken knowledge, sent a chill through the commander. "We know what you've come here for," she said, her voice unwavering. "And we know you're not leaving this place without answering for what you've done." The commander opened his mouth to speak, but the woman's gaze stopped him cold. "You've already lost," she said. "We gave you every opportunity. Your empire was built on the back of violence, deceit, and oppression. We gave you silence, a chance to reflect on what you were doing. You didn't listen, but now you'll understand." The transmission cut, abruptly, leaving only the cold silence of space in its wake. The commander's heart pounded in his chest. The last vestiges of pride he had clung to had been ripped away in that one statement. Earth had not only won, they had already foreseen the Empire's defeat, calculated the inevitable downfall, and made sure there was no way out for them. "Sir," the weapons officer said hesitantly, "our remaining fleet is retreating. They're abandoning the mission." "Let them go," the commander muttered, his voice hollow. "There's no honor in this anymore." The first officer, her voice heavy, turned to the commander. "What now?" The commander looked out at the field of destruction, the wreckage of the fleet scattered across the cosmos like broken bones. He had never expected this, never imagined that Earth, a planet they had so easily dismissed, would bring them to their knees. But now there was no denying it. Earth had done the impossible. "It's over," he whispered, more to himself than anyone else. "We failed." The crew stood still, the realization sinking in that their empire, once the mightiest force in the galaxy, had been bested by a species they had thought was doomed. But Earth had fought, had survived, and in doing so had rewritten the rules of warfare. The once proud empire was now on the brink of collapse. The commander stood tall for one last moment, watching as Earth's victory unfolded before him. And, for the first time, he knew, truly knew, that it was over. They thought it was mercy. It wasn't, and Earth had already responded.